U.S. Hi there, YouTube. We're starting up our Chinese coverage. U.S. secures deal on Philippines bases to complete arc around China. With the deal, the U.S. has secured access to four additional military bases in the Philippines, a key bit of real estate which would offer a front seat to monitor the Chinese in the South China Sea and around Taiwan. With the deal, Washington has stitched the gap in the arc of U.S. alliances stretching from South Korea and Japan in the north to Australia in the south. The missing link had been the Philippines, which borders two of the biggest potential flashpoints, Taiwan and the South China Sea. I mean, this is really quite frightening, guys, because we are seeing a Cold War style ramp up of preparations for what does seem to be a large ongoing conflict between the West and China. The deal, which in part reverses the U.S. departure from their former colony more than 30 years ago, is no small matter. Quote, there is no contingency in the South China Sea that does not require access to the Philippines, said Gregory B. Poling, director of the Southeast Asia program at the Center for Strategic and International Studies in Washington. The U.S. is not looking for permanent bases. It's about places, not bases. Yeah, I mean, bases used to be pretty important, but modern military, you know, the U.S. can get a lot of troops and armor into a location incredibly quick, with or without a base. Let them go to Carousel if they can get reborn. Nobody gets reborn. Carousel's a scam. The hell are you talking about? The U.S. already had limited access to 5 sites under the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement, EDCA. The new additions and expanded access, according to a statement from Washington, will allow more rapid support for humanitarian and climate-related disasters in the Philippines and respond to other shared challenges. Likely a veiled reference to countering China in the region. The statement came after U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin met Philippine President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos. Shut up. In Manila on Thursday. The U.S. has said where the new bases are. The U.S. hasn't said where the new bases are, but 3 of them could go on Luzon, an island in the north edge of Philippines, and the only large piece of land close to Taiwan if you don't count China. So they're basically putting a base as close to China as they fucking humanly possibly could get. I'm not saying, you know, China is blameless in this, guys. Okay, please don't think I'm, you know, all of a sudden I just turned into a fucking, you know, one of those weird leftists that's like the U.S. bad and everything China and Russia does really good. No. But this is frightening stuff, right? It's a direct response to, you know, all the bellicose language that China's been talking about, and there does seem to be like, you know, I think, you know, the United States was waiting for a more opportune time, but it looks like they're like, nope, we got to do this now. So let's make the deal sweet enough for the Philippine government and let's make it happen. China criticized the agreement, saying U.S. actions escalate regional tension and undermine regional peace and stability. Quote, the United States, out of its self-interest and zero-sum game mentality, wow, China's one to talk, continues to step up military posture in this region, its embassy said in a statement. I mean, China is literally, you know, the Chinese government, you know, says like, you know, the only, you know, I should clarify, I should make sure I know what I'm talking about before I say something like that. These days, the U.S. is seeking access to places where quote, light and flexible operations involving supplies and surveillance can be run as when needed, rather than bases where a large number of troops will be stationed. In other words, it's not a return to the 1980s when the Philippines was home to 15,000 U.S. troops and 2 of the largest American military bases in Asia at Clark Field and nearby Subic Bay. Then in 1991, the Philippine government called timeout. The Philippines had recently overthrown the hated dictatorship of Ferdinand Marcos, and sending the old colonial masters home would further cement both democracy and independence. The Vietnam War was long over, the Cold War was winding down, and China was as yet a military weakling. So in 1992, Americans went home, or at least most of them did. Maffin. We're talking about China, but I guess you want to talk about the weather balloon. Yeah, I guess you're talking about the ones that we shot down with a missile. It seems like one of them was probably a legitimate Chinese spy balloon, and the others seemingly were just random weather balloons. The most interesting factoid that I learned about that, about the world, from that balloon situation is that apparently we are releasing thousands of weather balloons, like, different agencies and laboratories and schools. They're releasing thousands of weather balloons into the sky, like a week or something, like just a ton of debris floating around up there, which I found to be pretty interesting. Yeah, there's a lot of fake news. No, I think there was some credibility to the first one being some kind of legitimate spy surveillance tool by the Chinese government, and the rest of them were weather balloons of various kinds. Yeah. Oh my God. The loonies are here. The motherfucking Four Horsemen just came in the fucking chat. Global warming is real, guys. What? Global warming's real. Anyway, those are my thoughts on the spy balloon thing. In terms of I'm left questioning the reason. If it is a Chinese spy balloon, why is there honestly any kind of surveillance that you could get that you couldn't get from a satellite? I guess you could intercept cell phone. There's probably a lot of surveillance actually that you could get from a low orbit weather balloon style device, right? That's collecting all kinds of information, just sitting around. No one can even see it. Guys, just go ahead and leave before I have to ban you. This is embarrassing. All right, enough of the loony bin derailing my stream. Anyway, you've heard the update here. You've heard my criticisms. I mean, the thing is, though, is if I was in charge, I might be doing the same exact thing, because it's not like I'm going to be caught slipping and I'm going to let the Chinese military intimidate me or my country, or intimidate the world, or my alliances, I think they need to legitimize this defense, though, and get Taiwan into NATO ASAP if they really want to be serious about this shit. Because United States, there's going to be a big portion of the United States that's not interested in helping Taiwan if shit goes down. New U.S. Marine units are taking position on key terrain around Taiwan as tensions rise with China. So this is just another article covering what we just talked about. But yeah, no, I mean, this Cold War is getting hotter and hotter, and we should be concerned, no doubt about it. Another last little bit here from China. How much time we got left? About 15 minutes. Yeah. So if we do this, that'll give me enough time to do Moldova. I won't have time for the UK until later tonight, but we could do Moldova. Okay. So just wanted to give you a little update. The Chinese housing situation that they're desperately trying to hide from the rest of the world. A lot of people don't know that, most U.S. interests aren't even allowed to participate in the Chinese markets. They've, it's a bunch of smoke and mirrors and a bunch of fake chicanery, bunch of malarkey, as a senile old man once said. It's a bunch of malarkey, and quite frankly, the chickens are coming home to roost, and it's really hard for them to keep this genie out of the bottle. How many euphemisms can I use? But yeah, the Chinese real estate industry collapsing. But the thing is that China has been successful. What was it, Legrand? I think is the name of it. But they've been successful in putting the lid on all this and just letting massive failures happen, and they're seemingly just coasting through. So, but let's get an update here.
Not long ago, this entire area was farmland. Now, it's a case study for how cruel the Chinese housing boom can be. Many here struck a deal with a developer, their land in exchange for new homes in the high-rises sprouting up. 8 years later, the homes aren't finished, the people here still stranded. There is still a thriving community in the village of Dawangjong, but it exists in the shadows of what they were promised. Some, including the elderly, have shelter in this temporary accommodation. It's here we meet Wang Fong and her mother. Their old house is long demolished. She's now searching for work and struggling to get by. She needs the home she's owed.
Wow. So it's a really long time.
所以等的时间还挺长的。
啊，但是还不知道还会等几年。那反正是就这么等吧。那开发商他们现在不是都没钱，那不是房都盖不起来，那肯定着急呀。你要出去租房，你是不是还得一年给人家多少钱呢？因为我属于是单亲家庭，我领着孩儿领不俩老了。
She showed us inside the small space her mother now lives.
扫扫老吵。
It's damp and full of rats, she explains. Significantly worse.
Ooh, that's bad. I was going to point out the mold on the wall, and then they show this. Yeesh.
Than what they gave up.
租人家房还不成租着自己房？你们俩说，像咱这种越改造越穷。
Outside, the remnants.
Maffin, I don't think China is supplying Russia with weapons yet. They're playing this very, very close, and I think they're being very smart about it, because I think what they need from Putin and the Russian military is that they're actually going to win. You know, I think what they don't want is they want to, they want to see it. They don't want to see a bunch of Chinese military hardware getting blown up on the Ukrainian battlefield, right? It's pretty fucking embarrassing. So I don't think they're doing it yet. Maybe some ammo under the table, right? Maybe, North Korea is definitely hooking Russia up. But in terms of Chinese made, rifles and guns and artillery and tanks and all that shit, I don't think they're doing that yet. Putin certainly would like them to.
Ripped up lives are everywhere. Across China, developers have come close to collapse, leaving people to pick up the pieces. Many, like this old lady.
Since when is war fair? Maffin, are you sad that Russia's getting its ass kicked? Do you give a shit about Russia all of a sudden, even though a year ago you couldn't give a flying fuck about Russia? Come on, buddy. You guys are embarrassing.
Now face soaring rent as they wait. She didn't have these outgoings before her home was demolished. Now she has to litter pick to make ends meet.
那你不挣个钱，孙子啥的，你还得吃喝的呀，再盖不成啊！你说这，你光俺那6、7口人租房也可来劲啊！至少也咱没有过路费，啥都没有。
Hey guys, how come war isn't fair? This sucks. No. We should stop. You know what? The moral thing to do would be stop giving weapons to Ukraine. Then Russia could win. Yay! Hammer sickle.
也没生活费。
Hammer sickle, yay!
The government has intervened with a huge financial package to help restart suspended activity. But many, here and elsewhere, believe just a few workers are sent to keep up appearances. We saw just a handful. There are the most striking signs all over this city of just how flawed the relentless model of borrowing and building can be. Look here, the money has simply run out. And the reality is that the Chinese housing market, for so long a driver of growth, is now a real liability.
Whoa,
but unbelievably, people are still investing, such is the obsession with property here. This man works for a developer building another block just round the corner. He didn't want to show his face.
还好，我个人觉得啊，之前开发商很多出问题，可能跟融资环境收紧，就是融资环境就是从去年开始吧，已经放松。
The UN needs to step in and help America with the school shooting situation. I mean, someone needs to help America. It's an endemic.
松了。
That relaxing will ease the short-term pain. But in the long term, it makes boom and bust more likely. There is a systemic problem here, and it's people who are paying for it. Helen Ann Smith, Sky News in Zhengzhou.
As a leftist in America, I disagree with getting rid of the Second Amendment because I believe in protecting oneself. With that said, I also believe in well-regulated militias. And I'm perfectly fine with making assault weapons illegal while keeping pistols, shotguns, and long rifles, the ones you would use for hunting, perfectly legal. That's my stance on it. But of course, every time I talk to a right-winger about guns, they just assume I want a full gun ban. Where Davey, who's an interesting character, quite a contrarian in so many ways, definitely a conservative leaning person. But yeah, he advocates for a full gun ban. With that said, he advocates for a measured gun ban. He does not advocate for literally flipping a switch and Gestapo knocking on your door and just taking everyone's weapons like a Superman comic book fantasy. We've debated this several times. And Davey does agree that, you know, it should be at a tiered thing, because one worry I have is like, yeah, okay, we ban guns. What about the cops? Right? Are cops going to be allowed to carry assault weapons in their trunks anymore? So I think that's a fair question. But anyway, YouTube, that's the Chinese update. We're going to hop into Moldova next.